עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
ימינו ובהם נגד יומם בלילה באהבת חוותך.
אין כמוך ואלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך. מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. אהבה רחמים, היטיב ברצונך את ציון. תבנה חומות ירושלים, תבנה חומות ירושלים. כי בך לבד בטחנו, מלך הרם ונישא אדון עולמים. ויהי בצוהרם ויאמר משה, קום אדוני ויפוצו עיניך וינוסו משעריך מפניך. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ולבוא אדוני מירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, לעמו ישראל Shema והתפארת והנצח וההוד כי כל בשמיים ובארץ כי כל בשמיים ובארץ לך אדוני הממלכה והברית נעשה לכל הראש.
Baruch Adonai Amvarach.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Amvarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, Tzav et Aharon v'et panav lemor, Zot Torat ha'olah, hi ha'olah, el mukna lahamizbeach kol halayla ad haboker, ve'sham mizbeach tukadvo, v'lavash ha'kohen midovad, ומכנסי ועד ילבש על בשרו והרים את הדשן אשר תאכל האש את העולה על המזבח ושמו אצל המזבח.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu b'hazman hazeh.
Yasher Koach. Please rise as the Torah is lifted. Just put it down here.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה.
benediction, and we invite the congregation to respond with King Yehi Ratzon. May God bless you. May God bless you and watch over you. May God's presence be with you and shine upon you and grant you peace. May God's presence be very kind to you. May you find God wherever you are. And may God grant you the greatest gift of all, the gift of peace. Amen. Yes.
Shabbat Shalom, or Shavua Tov, as the case may be. Good evening and welcome. On behalf of the entire Temple B'nai Abraham family, I would like to wish Rabbi Kulwin a Yishar Koch and Kol HaKavod on his being honored this evening, as evidenced by this rather impressive gathering, as well as wish a heartfelt Mazal Tov to the entire Kulwin family, Robin, Nathan, Christy, Noah, and Molly, for this evening and the love, affection, and admiration the entire Kulwin family engenders among our congregation and larger communities. It is now my great honor to introduce Ed Minhart, who as president of our congregation not only stewards a wonderful time in our history, but also fittingly, tonight, as a Minhart, represents several generations here to honor Rabbi Kulwin. Ed?
Rabbi, on July 1st, 1999, you became Temple B'nai Abraham's fourth religious leader in 98 years. Our temple has a long and rich history of esteemed rabbis, and you have continued this while setting your own legacy. You have distinguished yourself as a community figure, active on boards of many local Jewish and civic organizations, including United Jewish Communications of Communities of Metro West, New Jersey Performing Arts Center, Newark Now, and the Montclair Public Library. Your opinion pieces, which appear frequently in the Jewish News and the Star Ledger, are always greatly anticipated and always insightful. Tonight, we gather with you and your family to wish you a special Todah Rabbah and a heartfelt Mazal Tov on your spectacular 13 years with Temple B'nai Abraham. On behalf of an extremely grateful congregation, I thank you for your dedication, commitment, and love you have so graciously bestowed on us so quickly. We as a temple have shared simchas, sorrows, holidays, challenges, and successes with you, not only as our spiritual leader, but as our friend. We connected with you very early on, as you did with us. Your warmth exudes all that you do. Your connection with our most precious members, our children, begins at an early stage, starting with Shabbats in the early school, continuing with classes in our religious school, teaching Hebrew to our high school students, and connecting with our college kids on campuses. You form lifetime connections with our children. Adult ed classes, book groups, Parshat HaShavua leave us wanting more. Holiday and weekly Shabbat services we can always count on for an engaging and warm experience, and with a chuckle or two, of course. Your warmth is overwhelming when you are standing beside our children as they become B'nai Mitzvah, standing under the chuppah, getting married, or celebrating a baby naming. Your true caring is abundant when needed in times of sickness and sorrow as well. You support, build, and keep our congregation strong. You help us in our congregation ensure the Jewish future. At the same time, you teach us to care lovingly for one another through sadness and challenges, and also enduring our Jewish future. On a personal note, I thank you for your friendship and guidance as a president and as a dear friend. You have taught me many valuable life lessons, and I truly enjoy our conversations and time spent in the temple and out of the temple. Rabbi, I know I speak for all the past, present, and future presidents, administrations, and boards in wishing you our profound thanks for the first 13 years and heartfelt best wishes for the next 13 years, at least, at Temple Ben Abraham. May you and your family, and we as a congregational family, continue to go from strength to strength. Mazal Tov to you, Robin, Noah, Molly, Nathan, and Christy on these first 13 years. It is only the beginning. And now, Rabbi, as I do on Saturday mornings, I'd like to invite you up and for the presentation. PJ, is this it or PJ? Oh, you're here. Okay. I'm not sure this is the right one that I was supposed to present, but I'm going to present it anyway, as I do on Saturday mornings, on behalf of the Men's Club, on behalf of the Sisterhood, and on behalf of all of the arms of the temple. We wish you Toda Rabah, Mazel Tov, and thank you for all you do for us, for a temple, and for all of us in this congregation. Mazel Tov.
How cool is that? In the spirit of our historical congregation, who better to honor Rabbi Kulwin this evening than his close friend and mayor of Newark, the city whose ties to TBA continue to flourish, the Honorable Mayor Cory Booker.
So I think I need to begin with a confession and ask for forgiveness. Confessionals might be from a different religious tradition, but I begin to tell you that when I was first asked to speak, the entire 3 weeks, all I kept thinking about was this was going to be my opportunity to roast Rabbi Cohen. I was excited. The whole week I was writing down jokes, crossing out some of them. I was going to entitle my speech, "You Wish You Were 13 Years Old." Back then, he was a young, chiseled man. Now he is not chiseled, he just jiggles. But I knew I could not do that. I was on his home turf. We could start a big fight. He never knew. I wouldn't be welcome back in the shul. I'd have to put him on the no-fly list at Newark Airport. And I also know one of the men who has probably done more mitzvahs in my life than I can count, Richard Schrank, who was one of the people that first brought me to the rabbi. I knew that he would look at me in a stern manner and also have a series of punishments. So I have to ask forgiveness. I have folded up that speech. I have going to save some of the jokes for a later day when we're alone, and I want to call his wife and make her laugh. But I would like to tell you simply this. I had the privilege at the end of last year, this past December, that was amazing. It would have been something I'd sought to do for many, many years. I've traveled to Israel before, but I had never brought my mom and dad. And for me, I thought it would be the great chance to give them this gift, to take them to Israel. My father is becoming very ill with Parkinson's, and I knew it would be one of the last opportunities to take a family trip with my dad, and what better place to go than to Israel. And it was an incredible trip for me, brought my family to tears numerous times. I'll never forget, and I now have it on my computer at home, just a scene of my father and I, arm in arm, praying at the Kotel. But one night, these two men who were our guides for the trip, who are Israeli, former military, Secret Service, Secret Police, came to me after I put my parents to bed and said, "Let's go for a ride." And I looked around, and nobody was there for me to reach out for to help. And they put me in an off-road vehicle, and before you knew it, we're driving off-roads into the Israeli desert. And the whole time I can think about is I told nobody where I was going. This is probably what they do to the Goyim. Bring them out into the desert, leave them here, and to see if they're truly worthy, can they find their way back? I can handle the urban landscape, but I was lost in the desert. But we ascended to a moment, and we stopped on a hill, and we were overlooking into a valley where there were the lights of the city, and over to another hill. And they turned to me and they said that this is Mount Nebo. Do you know what Mount Nebo is? And I have to confess that I'm one of those people who reads the Bible or the Torah and skips over the names I can't pronounce to go to the meat of what the story is. And they explained to me that that was the mountain that Moses came to and looked into the promised land, but knew that he would never be able to enter the promised land. And what touched me then, immediately as soon as he said that, is it made a deep connection to me and my African-American tradition. I actually was aware of what the Parsha was that week, and it is one of my favorite Parsha readings where it simply says, it's where Joseph is being thrown into the well, and his brothers say, as they see Joseph approaching, "Behold, here cometh the dreamer, let us slay him and see what becomes of his dreams." And what made me very sort of overcome in that moment was knowing what the Torah portion was and seeing the mountain where Moses stood. I knew what it meant for my tradition. In many ways, Martin Luther King was called the Moses of his people. And if you remember, his last speech was all about going to the mountaintop. And here I was standing at the mountaintop. It would be hours after that speech that Martin Luther King would be killed. He would be murdered at the Lorraine Motel. And the inscription at that hotel still today, I went and visited there with my brother, says simply that: "Behold, here cometh the dreamer. Let us slay him and see what will become of his dreams." I stood there with these two Israeli men pulling off their iPad and doing what only we could do in the 21st century. And I brought up Martin Luther King's speech. And I let these two men hear it. And they too looked to have tears in their eyes as they understood the profound moment that we were sharing. I'm so honored to be here today because I get a chance not only to roast, but also to make this point very clear. I feel immensely blessed to have a friend like Rabbi Kulwin. Not just because of how, on a personal level, he has supported me. He has been a shelter in my political storms. He's been a friend that is concerned about me and my spirit and my heart. But truly, I celebrate him today for the larger reason. We still live in a nation that has not fulfilled its promise. Children from Oakland, California to Newark, New Jersey, in the morning with voices of hope and voices of spirit, like a chorus calling to our consciousness, say those 5 words over and over again, pledging that we will be a nation with liberty and justice for all. Words are easy to say, but it takes courageous and consistent and indefatigable leadership to make real on those words. Rabbi Cohen is an emissary of the Spirit in the deepest and most powerful ways. Here in this world where we look at differences of region and race and religion, he sees everyone as God's children and understands that the greatest commandment is to love God and do justice. Between he and I, there are many obvious differences, but they are quickly dissolved by his love, by his love, by his love. There's a wonderful author named Alice Walker who wrote this seminal book called In Search of My Mother's Garden. And she talks in that book about the need for a revolution of conscience, a revolution of compassion, a revolution for love. And she writes a passage in there where she says she is talking to black revolutionaries. Allow me to take it and paraphrase it with a simple ideal of that revolution of spirit. She says, and I paraphrase, that the real revolutionary is always concerned with the least glamorous of things, about being there for children and helping them to learn, about being there for the elderly, about helping people to eat because they need to eat, revolution or not. The real revolutionary is always close enough to their people to be there for them when they need you. Rabbi Kulwin is not one of those flashy leaders that you're going to see on TV every night. He's not one of those men that you're going to read about in newspaper clippings, but he is doing the important work that this democracy urgently needs. He is there for his people. He is there for his community in intimate ways, in unglamorous ways, in consistent ways. But his definition of his people, of his community, is much wider than one would think. Whether it's a child in Newark yearning to have a great education, whether it's an adult who is looking for guidance in their lives, whether it's a couple going through trouble in their family home, Rabbi Kulwin is there. Far be it from me to be an African-American goy to stand in the bima and give a Devar Torah. But I thought it was no coincidence that the parsha readings of the last 2 weeks, in my opinion, so perfectly exemplify the leadership of Rabbi Cohen. The last 2 Torah readings seem like ones I often want to skip over that have nothing to do with, it seems, something real and something pertinent, but they're about building a tabernacle. It's about how to make sacrifices. And as I was going over them on the internet, I began to think that this is what Rabbi Kulwin's all about. One of the lines from last week's Torah is, God commanded us to build a tabernacle, and he said, I will reside in them. Not in it, but in them. This to me is what Rabbi Kulwin is all about the need in this nation for us to build tabernacles, not of stone and wood and cement, but for us to build within ourselves, within our communities, within our towns and cities, and in this nation, sacred spaces for which the true Spirit of God can reside. That Spirit that unites us, that Spirit that binds us, that Spirit that commands us to create peace and love and justice. This, to me, is the rabbi's true contributions, is that he is working to build a tabernacle of spirit, one that is encompassing all people. He is living that Abrahamic ideal of creating an environment which is a tent that's open on all sides, where everyone who approaches feels welcome, feels connected, feels like they are a part of something bigger than themselves. This is his gift to us. And this is why I not only call him friend, but I recognize him as a mentor, as a leader, and as a man of profound hope. Let me end with this last sentiment. When I stayed with my parents in Israel, they talked to me about what their hopes were for their lives, that they could see a day truly that our nation would unite, not around politics, but my mom spoke so eloquently about the need for my generation to do more than theirs did, to finish the marches, to finish the protests, to finish the demands that our country should live up to its highest ideals. I loved to listen to my mom when we were there in the Holy Land. And as I returned back to this country, I felt even more renewed in my determination to make true on the promise and the hope of America. But what truly encourages me in this is that I have a friend that is not just cheering me on in my work in Newark, but a man that stands in the trenches with me, a man that understands that God has commanded all of us not to play small, not to shrink from our true calling, but to be larger than life, to be the authentic representations of who we say we are. Rabbi Kulwin is a Jew in the best sense of the word. He is in this world to tikkun olam, to heal it. He is my brother, and he is my inspiration. And so on this day, I simply give him 2 words, Yasher Koach.
I now call on a great friend of Rabbi Kulwin's, prolific author and lecturer, professor and department chair of history at UCLA, Dr. David Meyers.
Thank you so much, VJ. Thank you all for being here. It's really a great honor and privilege to join together with you in tribute of our dear friend, Rabbi Clifford Kulwin. I especially want to thank you, BJ, for placing me on the program directly after one of the greatest orators in American political life, the Honorable Cory Booker, the mayor of Newark. What I didn't expect, I expected oratorical wonders. I didn't expect that he would actually steal my lines about the Parsha. That, I must confess, that was a surprise. So I'm here because I think for 2 reasons. One, I probably earned the designation of being the person who came from the farthest distance. I came from Los Angeles for this event. And second, I'm one of those who knows Rabbi Kulwin the longest in this gathering. We met as graduate students at Columbia University in the fall of 1985. And in fact, when I think of Rabbi Kulwin, I always think of him as Clifford, because that is the designation bestowed upon him by our towering magisterial mentor, Professor Yerushalmi, who in his very distinctive stentorian voice would peer over his glasses and in that unique English accent born of his native home in the Bronx would say, Clifford, you take Portugal, as he divided up the Jewish historical atlas into different portions. So Cliff and I met as graduate students, and we became very good friends. And in fact, we became roommates for a brief spell. And I want to share with you some aspects of Cliff's life from that period. I suppose I'm here also as an historian, and so we want to chronicle together this important history. There's some things about Rabbi Cohen that you perhaps don't know. Chiseled, I'm not sure. But he was a dashing and debonair man in that time. I think of Rabbi Cohen as a character from Mad Men. He smoked, which seemed to be altogether charming. He had a flair for foreign languages, and he was in particular a Lusophile. He was both a speaker and lover of the Portuguese language and culture, and I'm sure, Mayor Booker, he would be happy to accompany you on a campaign tour to the Ironbound and work the crowd. He's one of the few rabbis I know whose command of Portuguese may surpass his command of Hebrew, and his Hebrew is quite good. So this was another unique feature, but I think what's perhaps most noteworthy, and what I think you'd be most interested to hear, is that he had one of the most active dating lives of any person I'd ever met. And I was there to attest to it, since I slept in the couch in this one-bedroom apartment, seeing the comings and goings. And I must add to that, I was newly married, so I was gazing upon this spectacle with wide-eyed wonderment and astonishment at the same time. This was, of course, before he met Robin. And in our very first encounter, Robin, I have to tell this, in our very first encounter, Robin, Cliff, and I, we were joking, and I asked Robin, so what is it like to be in the presence of greatness? And she said, without a moment's hesitation, I don't know, you'll have to ask Cliff. Magnificent, magnificent, never to be forgotten. But what is it, what accounted for that remarkable dating life? I know that the command of Portuguese was related to the active dating life, because Clifford spent 2.5 years in Brazil, and that facilitated his communication in different ways. But what really lay at the core of that active dating life, that serial dating that Clifford was involved in? And I think it was a very simple principle. He knew how to treat people well. He had a core respect for the integrity of men and women alike, and it worked magnificently. It was born, I think, of a very foreign, strange, and exotic place, a place about which I only dreamt in my wildest imagination, the Midwest. That corn-fed decency and integrity that we all see as such vital characteristics of Rabbi Kulwin were present then and there, and they were part of his core constitution. Anyway, that was then. Fast forward 2.5 decades later, here we are all together, and we're here to honor this really remarkable friend, partner, community builder. And when I think about him, I too, like Mayor Booker, think of the Parsha. I think of this week's Parsha, which is indeed about sacrificing, about the bringing of sacrifices to the Holy Temple, or actually even before the Holy Temple, to the tent of the assembly, the meeting place in the desert, before the children of Israel make their way to the Promised Land. Both Rabbi Cohen and I noted this very interesting etymological point that I think really embodies his essence. The verb for bringing or making a sacrifice is the Hebrew word lahakriv. Lahakriv korban. These two words are etymologically linked themselves. Lahakriv korban means to bring a sacrifice. It comes from the Hebrew root for the word that means close. It means also to bring people close together. And when I think of Cliff Kulwin, I think of someone who is always making a personal sacrifice on behalf of the common weal, and doing so by bringing people together, as he has this evening. I also think of last week's Parsha, which is entitled, actually it was a double Parsha, it's a little bit complicated, Vayakel Pekudei. Vayakel is perhaps my favorite word in the entire Hebrew language. And it is a unique word. It makes a very infrequent appearance in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible. Vayakel means to bring people together and form a community. And that is indeed what Rabbi Kulwin did in creating a community of graduate students at Columbia University. It's what he did when he was in Rio de Janeiro. It is what he did on a global level when he worked for the World Union of Progressive Judaism. And it is what he has done so remarkably over the past 13 years here in this community. I can think of no greater tribute than to say that someone has made a community. And my hope, like that of Ed, is that you have the privilege and benefit of making a community together with this remarkable leader, Rabbi Cliff Kulwin. Thank you very much.
It's not surprising that Montclair resident Cliff Kulwin would count among his friends Andrew Rosenthal, the editorial page editor of the New York Times, both in print and online. Bright, accomplished people in a community tend to gravitate towards each other. We thank Andy for being here and welcome him now to say a few words.
Thank you very much. I thought I was okay going after the guy that went after Cory Booker. I figured the college professor from LA would not be funny. I was wrong. So I'm not going to be. I would just like to say something. You know, this is the fourth time I've been here, and it's always a little intimidating. This is a very big room. I'm a journalist. I'm very cynical about politicians. I expect them to tell me things that I know not to be true or things that are expedient, and to listen to someone like I just did, Mr. Mayor, who spoke from his heart about important things was really inspiring, and I just want to thank you for that. At the risk of inflating your ego to the popping point, on Friday we heard from another great politician, Barack Obama, who spoke about that young boy who was killed in Florida and made some points that I thought were very powerful too, and seemed to come from his heart. And watching some of the other hearts beating out there on the campaign trail this year, it was inspiring to see people say the right thing. I'm sorry, I'm from Montclair. The professor said he came from the farthest, but we are the farthest to the left. I always refer to it as the People's Republic of Montclair. And I did meet Cliff there. I wanted to say a few words about him and about our friendship. And we met in that classic suburban way through our wives, who met through the schools. But we have become great friends. And Cliff introduced me to this great institution, B'nai Abraham, through my friend and colleague Maureen Dowd, who spoke here one night and kept dragging me up on the stage to answer questions that she wanted to avoid, like all the ones about Israel. And that led to Cliff calling me and asking me if I would speak here, and I asked him if he would pay me as much as you folks paid Maureen. And he laughed, and he said, not in your lifetime, but we'll give you a nice dinner, which he did. And that night I first spoke here, I told Cliff afterward that I had been very nervous and worried that I would have nothing much to say. And he laughed in a very friendly way and said it was really time for me at this point in my life, that now that I was editor of the editorial page of the New York Times, to stop worrying. And he said that everyone was interested, and that as for having nothing to say, that didn't exactly seem to be my problem. But the thing I want to talk about most of all was that Cliff has meant for us can be seen through the eyes of my kids. I'm talking about my children, Gabriel, who is 16 now, and Natasha, who's about to be 13. And these are my two Catholic children. And I should hasten to add, were introduced to the Seder by Cliff and by Robin. And I'm not betraying my kids, I think, if I tell you that the first time we told them that we were going to do this, they were not overjoyed. It's bad enough to have to go through all the Catholic holidays. Now they had to do the Jewish one too, and they thought they had a pass. But they loved it, and they look forward to it every year, and they missed it last year, and they're looking forward to it again very soon. Because apart from the warmth and the hospitality and the great food that Robin made, Cliff was unfailingly generous with his knowledge and his humor and his enthusiasm. And I met other famous Jews like Cory Booker there, who has a knowledge of this religion that always amazes me. And our kids not only enjoyed themselves, but they had an educational time and they had a spiritual time, and that's the important thing. And that, by the way, didn't just apply to my kids. I will tell you, my own confession here is that my father was Jewish, but he was not a religious man. He had his bar mitzvah on his 70th birthday. I gave him a pen and a savings bond, and he looked at me like I was insane. He said, "What are these for?" And I said, "Give them back." Finding a savings bond, too, at the time was not easy. My mother, Anne Marie Burke, was Irish Catholic, and I was baptized in her faith. But Passover was something we always did at my Aunt Rose and my Uncle's Bernie's house, and they were the ones who kept up the tradition of Judaism as a religion in my father's rather strange and socialist and atheistic family. But I have always considered myself culturally and politically, in my father's family, politics was a big part of Judaism, to be Jewish. My father used to say it didn't really matter what my mother's maiden name was. Everybody heard my name and they assumed I was Jewish, and that was a great thing to be. And going to the Kulwins for Seder was important to me too, because it reconnected me to that part of my life, which I don't get. Going to my children's first communions and their christenings and watching them serve at the Mass and doing Easter. And all of those things which I love as part of my family, but aren't part of what I grew up with. And now, especially since my father died, I lost that connection in my life. And to me, it's the mark of a real leader, especially a religious leader, that dedication to passing on their understanding, their depth of belief, and their joy in their culture and their religion to the new generations, and in my case, to the sort of old middle-aged one. So for all of that, Rabbi Kulwin, which I want to thank you, and thanks from Natasha and from Gabriel and Mary Beth and the whole Rosenthal family. Congratulations, this is an amazing moment. Thank you for letting me join me.
Rabbi Daniel Hillel Freelander serves as Senior Vice President of the Union for Reform Judaism. A gifted musician, composer, and lecturer, he and Rabbi Cohen not only share callings, but as they say, go back a long way. Dan?
Of those of you here, I may possibly know Cliff the longest. I will not disclose the particulars of the evening we met somewhere in Pennsylvania, but consider that our lives have paralleled each other for many years. I've always felt very comforted in the presence of Cliff. I finally found someone who I do not have to feel always dresses better than me. And David, I want to know about the serial dating. I met him at Carnegie Hall most of the times that you thought he was, never mind. I also had the privilege of officiating at Cliff and Robin's wedding, one of the most important moments that I've ever been able to participate in, and a very wise choice on Cliff's part. And in Pirkei Avot, I read that Yossi ben Yoezer said, "Yehi vetecha beit va'ad lachachamim." Let your home, let your house be a meeting place for the wise, and always be present with others, even with the dust of their feet, and drink in their words with thirst. This dictum describes Cliff and Robin's home, and it articulates the B'nai Abraham that Rabbi Kulwin aspires to with you: open and caring, intellectually curious and gracious, determined and passionately involved in the community. So I'm grateful for the privilege of being able to be here to honor Cliff on behalf of the International Progressive Jewish Community, which he served with distinction for so many years before he began his 13 years here at B'nai Abraham. From Brazil to Europe to the former Soviet Union to Israel, Cliff demonstrated a leadership and commitment to Klal Yisrael that has shaped the Jewish world as we know it today. And you all know that his engagement with the Montclair and Newark civic communities and so many other organizations here in Essex County demonstrate and reflect his personal values and commitment to building and living in a stimulating and socially responsible community. As an extraordinary attention to members of this synagogue community is what blows me away sometimes. I spend a lot of vacation time with Cliff and Robin. I want to read the Times. I want to hang out at Tanglewood. Cliff is there writing notes to the young people of B'nai Abraham who are at summer camp. Would anyone here whose child ever received a note from Rabbi Kulwin raise your hand? Well, there goes his summer vacation. And raise your hand if you've ever been comforted by his words and presence in a moment of need. And raise your hands if Rabbi Kulwin has ever been a part of a family simcha or celebration or life cycle event. This is the community that Rabbi Kulwin has created. Cliff and I bonded over music and drink and laughter, and then go down to a gym together on West 57th Street. And Cliff, I was not an avid gym goer, but he convinced me, he taught me a way to guarantee that I would actually go work out before I went to work in the morning. He called it gym insurance. Now, what is gym insurance? Gym insurance was you get out of bed in the morning, you get onto the bus to Manhattan, you come to the office looking worse than you did when you went to sleep the night before and not smelling much better. That way, if you did not go to the gym in the morning and take a shower there and get dressed, you could not go back to work. And so for several years, to the chagrin of my wife, I would get up in the morning and leave the house looking absolutely a mess and saying, this is the only way I can be sure that I will exercise today. When Cliff came to B'nai Abraham, he stopped commuting into Manhattan, and there went the gym insurance. I have been drinking in his friendship and his words for almost 3 decades. His house is always open. His front porch in Montclair or in Paradox Lake is a haven for all of us when we need to unburden. His voice is always there, reassuring and caring. I think he was born with a phone in his ear. He puts more minutes on his cell phone than most teenagers. And he takes you as you are, with dusty feet or messy hair or over-the-top emotions, and he sees through to the essence of your being. He drinks you in. He remembers your names and your family members' names and your joys and your sorrows. But his truest joy and greatest asset, as we all know, is his family. His wonderful partner, Robin, and the remarkable kids, Noah and Molly and Nathan. They keep him sane, or sometimes insane, and very well grounded. Especially in Noah, he's found his ultimate intellectual challenge. Noah lets him get away with nothing. Halomed mechavero perek echad tzarich linhog bo chavod. Any individual who learns even one verse of Torah, or one chapter, or one word, he is required to show that person great honor. And so tonight, we remember that just as we have made Cliff our rabbi, we have acquired a friend. We're told, Aseh lecha rav u'kneh lecha chaver. Thank you to Cliff Kulwin for being our rabbi and being our friend.
As should be clear to everyone, Rabbi Kulwin not only represents TBA within these walls, but throughout our community. And so it is indeed an honor to ask the mayor of Livingston, the Honorable Steve Santola, to come forward and say a few words.
I am terribly embarrassed. Cory Booker stole my entire speech. Seriously, the Abrahamic tent, the tabernacle, readings from the Torah, almost word for word. Who invited you? And what am I doing here? Hyla, I mean, what are you kidding me? Mayor Booker, the chair of the UCLA History Department, Rosenthal, and me. Remember that Sesame Street? Which one of these things is not like the other? And as long as we're having this conversation, who has friends like these? I mean, we're all sitting here feeling extraordinarily inadequate, right? I'm thinking to myself, who would be here for me? I was in that guy's wedding. I think he's unemployed. Very. So since Cory stole my speech, I'm going in a completely different direction. And since it's Gentile Meyers confession night, Rabbi, I too have a confession. They asked us all to meet in the library in the back. And while I was there, I managed to sneak in a copy of the New Testament and Shades of Grey. Before we appropriately fet the rabbi, I'd like to take a step back. And Rabbi, I'd like for you to recognize how lucky you are. As your adopted hometown of Livingston prepares for its bicentennial celebration in 2013, and we all prepare to celebrate the spirit of community and volunteerism that permeates Livingston, you get to lead a congregation that has been a pillar of this community for generations. I look around, I think we have a quorum of the planning board in the room. We have the editor of the town paper. We have all kinds of former Citizens of the Year award. And I can't help but think that you've generated, of all of those folks, what you have generated the most of, led by your current president, Ed Minhart, is youth sports coaches that are way too loud on our athletic field. Rabbi, you are truly blessed to preside over this congregation. Enlightened, dedicated, and extraordinarily fun. It is no secret that the B'nai Abraham bar mitzvahs rock. And let's be clear, Rabbi, they are very lucky to have you as well. I am an avid bar mitzvah attendee. And as I mentioned on January 2nd, when the rabbi was kind enough to do the benediction at my swearing-in ceremony, my favorite part of the bar mitzvah ceremony is toward the end, when the rabbi stands right here, across from the celebrant, and he makes a very personal conversation. Now, I know you may find this hard to believe, but I'm not Jewish. By the way, neither is Booker. But I can imagine this is a very, very heady moment for a 13-year-old boy or girl. Now, the rabbi does this 30 to 35 times a year with a doubleheader on many Saturdays. Yet each talk is heartfelt, spiritual, and perhaps most importantly, Rabbi, it's tailored to the new bar mitzvah's 13-year-old world. And it's as if it's the first time he's ever led a bar mitzvah celebration when I'm here. He fills the room with a sense of purpose and presents himself with the dignity and honor befitting of his rabbinical stature, but he never presents an arrogance or an intimidation to either the young people or anybody else in this room. Nothing portrays the rabbi's enormous pride in his congregation and his almost unfathomable ability to communicate better than these private talks in a very public setting. On a busy day when so many memories may fade over the years, Rabbi, I suspect that these young people will recall those one-on-one moments very meaningfully and in a very deep spiritual way. So, Rabbi, on behalf of Livingston, I'm going to give this a try. Come on up here. Rabbi, I cannot bestow upon you the Kiddush cup of the sisterhood. but I can do something that they cannot. So I'd like to read this proclamation, not just from me, but from our community. Whereas the mayor and members of the Livingston Township Council are pleased to join the members of Temple B'nai Abraham in honoring Rabbi Cliff Colwin on the occasion of Rabbi Colwin's bar mitzvah year as spiritual leader of Temple B'nai Abraham, having occupied the pulpit since 1999. And whereas Rabbi Cohen has distinguished himself as a leader whose sermons, addresses, and opinion pieces in the New Jersey Jewish News and Star Ledger have earned him respect throughout the Jewish community and the community at large. And whereas Rabbi Kulwin has devoted his time and energies in furtherance of humanitarian causes which have benefited members of his congregation and the state of New Jersey, and whereas Rabbi Kulwin's vision and commitment to Temple B'nai Abraham, to his congregation, and to the Livingston community have contributed greatly to the quality of life that our township enjoys. Now, therefore, I, Stephen Santola, as mayor of the Township of Livingston, do hereby proclaim tomorrow, Sunday, March 25th, 2012, to be forever known as Rabbi Cliff Colwin Day here in Livingston.
As well, we here at TBA take great pride in the fact that Cliff Colwin is a man of more than our community, as evidenced by the presence here tonight of the mayor of Montclair. We thank him for honoring our rabbi, and it's now my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Jerry Freed.
Well, it's truly an honor to be here, and everybody before me stole all my lines, so I'm just going to start off. As the mayor of the People's Republic of Montclair, offering greetings. Really, I'm here to offer thanks to all of you, really, everybody in this room, in this congregation, in this community, to the mayor of Livingston as well, because the Colwins are really the quintessential volunteers in the Township of Montclair. As the mayor of Montclair, and I wouldn't say I'm a career politician, I've been mayor for 4 years. I really came at this as a volunteer myself. And to me, the key of being a mayor in a town like Montclair is really to try and bring the community together around certain values. And as the other mayors know, there's a lot of ephemeral things that happen. There are volunteer boards, committees, commissions, and people who really make the community what it is. And in Montclair, we are truly blessed to have Rabbi Cohen serve on the library board, which happens to be one of the things that the mayor appoints. And his leadership there has been so important in that institution, which really is one of the two institutions that best embodies really the hopes and aspirations for Montclair, because Montclair really tries to be, I would say, I'd put us between Livingston and Newark. We have a lot of urban qualities, and yet we have qualities of cities, and it's really important that we provide services for all of the people of Montclair, and regardless of where they are on the socioeconomic spectrum. And the library is the one institution that does that. And Rabbi Kulwin's leadership in that, bringing the community around together to support that institution, in which there's tutoring for kids after schools. It's essentially our community center. It's really the place where everyone comes together. That's so important. But Rabbi Kulwin's wife, Robin, serves on the school board, which Montclair is a type 1 school district, and I'm very lucky to be able to appoint great people to serve on the school board. And Robin has been, for the past 2 years, doing amazing things in our school system, and that is, again, that's the most important institution in our town, because that embodies all of our aspirations for every single child having the opportunity to be able to have the world open up for them through education. And it really is only through the efforts of this group, and I know we have the vice president of the school board here as well, bringing these people together around making our schools as great as they can be. That's what Robin does for us, and that's all of our far left values in a nutshell right there. So really, I just would like to thank all of you for lending your support to him, and I can also see what type of community this is, just how much fun you have, how you like to laugh. My guess is you probably like to eat and drink a lot. I just would imagine that probably comes down from the top to leadership as well. But it's not, what it's not really about, it's a different type of leadership that I think Rabbi Kulwin gives. And my favorite quote, I think, that I use as a mayor is from de Tocqueville, and it's, in a democracy, the knowledge of how to combine is the mother of all other forms of knowledge, the knowledge of how to combine. And I think it's that knowledge that the rabbi brings here, and you can see and you can feel what effects that has throughout this community here in Livingston, in Montclair, in Newark, throughout New Jersey, and with tendrils that go far out. So that combination is a tribute, yes, to his leadership, but it's the style of leadership that he is able to give, and what that does is bring out the best in all of you and all of us. So thank you, and congratulations for this event.
And now, the woman not behind the man, but rather right there alongside our man. Wife, mother, community leader, and among our TBA family, Rebbitzin, great friend, and Rabbi Kulwin's infinitely better half, our own Rabbi Kulwin.
You scared? Through the years, I have learned so many valuable things from Cliff. When we were first getting to know one another, he told me that in rabbinical school, he was taught, never learn how to work the film projector. And if you do know, don't let anyone know that you know how. Another gem was to be very, very careful when thanking people publicly, lest you inadvertently leave someone out. In this case, there are so many people that we need to thank for so many things. Many of you for your friendship, many of you for making our family a part of your lives, many of you for making this evening what it is. Whether you worked on the planning or by being here to celebrate, to all of you, on behalf of our family, we thank you. So, Cliff, that was a pretty good start, don't you think? I know you were nervous. You told me. You are really, really nervous. And I know you often say, employment is a good thing. And I absolutely agree. So relax. I learned my lesson a long time ago, and I promise not to jeopardize your employment. Again. A bit of explanation here. When Cliff and I were first married, and we were both working in New York City, often we would bring work home and ask one another to look at it, see if what we had written was okay, because we both enjoy, being the grammar police. So one evening, Cliff asked me to look at a document that he left up on the computer. It was a letter to the president of a congregation in Buenos Aires, and as you might suspect, the body of the letter was just fine. He had signed the letter, "Very truly yours, Rabbi Clifford M. Kulwin." I then hit the backspace key and typed in, "Love and kisses." The Cliffaroo. A few days later, I said, "Cliff, remember that letter that you were sending to someone in Buenos Aires? You asked me to look at it the other day." I said, "What did you think of my edits?" He said, "Oh, I sent it." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes, I trust you." Oh dear. I will tell you that this gentleman was never alone in the room with Cliff again, but now you can see why, almost 22 years later, the Cliffaroo is just a little bit nervous. So now let me go back about 24 years. I was living in Jackson, Mississippi, where I had been for 13 years. My mother called me to say, "It would make your father happy if you would come home for Rosh Hashanah." She then added, "And would you plan to arrive at Dulles Airport between 2 and 3 so that your father only has to make one trip to the airport?" I immediately knew what that meant. That was code. We have to pick up the rabbi. You see, my hometown synagogue is a small one, and for many years was a biweekly student pulpit. I grew up going every other week to pick up the rabbi. So the day comes, I fly into Dulles, my dad meets me, and we go to wait at the gate for the rabbi. As people came up the jetway, I said to my dad, "So what does he look like?" My dad looked at me and said, "I don't remember." And so our journey began. Some few months later, when he told his father that we were dating, his father said, "Let me get this straight. You live in New York, the Mecca of single Jewish women, and you go to Winchester, Virginia, to meet someone who lives in Jackson, Mississippi." 2 years later, we married and moved to Montclair. Day 6 of our marriage was significant. At that point, we had never spent more than 5 consecutive days in the same city together. So fast forward, the next several years. Cliff worked with congregations around the world, but I always thought, while he was so good and loved this work, I remembered how wonderful he was with the congregation in Winchester. Just like the rabbi you have come to know, I saw someone who was genuinely interested in people, all people. He asked questions, he listened, he taught, he was compassionate, and he was knowledgeable. He was approachable, he was friendly, and as always, he seemed to approach every encounter as an opportunity to learn. I digress for a moment on the learning part. I was just looking at the books on his nightstand. Introduction to Epidemiology, Horowitz and Hill, The Art of Electronics, Macroeconomics, Finance and Managerial Accounting, a few Harlan Coben books, a few Robert Parker books, ham radio for dummies, and my personal favorite, Brain Surgery for Beginners. Let's go back. Yet again, my instincts were right. He is a wonderful congregational rabbi for the reasons I mentioned and even more. And at the same time, he is a wonderful friend, father, and husband for the very same reasons. Montclair and Temple B'nai Abraham have something very special in common. They are our community, and for this, we are so very lucky. And so, my dear Cliff, I have been proud to be your partner on this journey. With all my heart, I look forward to all of the adventures that lie ahead. And yes, employment is a good thing.
Top that. Simply put, it is now my great honor to introduce this evening's honoree, our rabbi, our spiritual leader, most important member of our extended TBA family, and the surrounding communities, and at the end of the day, our great friend. I give you Rabbi Cohen.
For those who have doubts about the legitimacy of this bar mitzvah occasion, I have only one word for you. Sam's. I think Jeff Cohen is here this evening. Somebody nail down a contribution to the endowment, please. I'm going to break the rule to which Robin alluded. I just want to mention a few people whom I really must mention. Those who really gave of themselves to make this evening possible in substantial and material ways. Steve Novich, Jersey City Furniture, Ellis Becker, who I've enjoyed listening to at Simchat Torah and Purim, who is providing the music this evening, our beloved member Jan Press, who along with Lou are the two greatest photographers in the state of New Jersey, and especially the Janoff and Weinstein families, who are, in just a minute or two, I promise you, going to provide us with an extraordinary opportunity for that food and drink that, yes, Mayor Fried, we like a lot. In that last regard, I also want to note, Alan, thank you so much for all you did for this evening. In many ways, you really are the heart of our Jewish community. There are a few special people to me who are here this evening who I'd just like to acknowledge. Austin and Nanny Butel from Toronto, dear, dear friends. Austin, one of the great leaders of the international Jewish community, whom I had the pleasure of working with for several years during his tenure as president of the World Union for Progressive Judaism. One old friend, one new friend, the recently retired president and CEO of the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, NJ PAC, both a cause and a place that is dear to my heart. Larry Goldman, who created the institution, led it for so many years, and built it up to a place that is known around the world. And his worthy successor, John Schreiber, a friend of new acquaintance who I discovered lives in Montclair. NJPAC is an important place. If you haven't been there, I'm really angry at you. Make sure you go. And if nothing else will get you there this well, because I know my people, what used to be the Theater Square Grill there, the restaurant there has been redone. It's totally new. And the people that own it and run it are the same people that own and run Fascino in Montclair. I knew that would get to you. I'd like to recognize my friend Rabbi Steve Fox, who is here, the Executive Vice President, the professional leader of the Central Conference of American Rabbis, the largest rabbinical organization in the world. And I would also like to note the presence of Carlos Lenyax. Carlos, where are you? I need to point you out. Stand up, please. Carlos. Now, I mentioned Carlos by name. You may not remember, but I mentioned the cause during the High Holy Day services. Carlos, who has actually a most interesting name, Carlos Lenyax. This is what happens when one has an Hispanic mother and a Latvian father. Carlos is the president of Big Brothers Big Sisters for this part of New Jersey, based in Newark, an extraordinary organization. I know that after I spoke about it on the High Holy Days, some of our members, quite a few of them in fact, were in touch with the organization and have become volunteers. Carlos has assured me that he has business cards in his pocket this evening. If you have only 4 hours a month that you can give to making a tremendous difference in the life of some young person, and you would like to do that and you will be enriched by it, find Carlos sometime this evening. Thank you for being here. To my dear friends who spoke this evening, just wait. You in particular, Meyers. Serial dating. In front of my children. But here's the worst part. I have to add this. David is the one responsible for my son going to school at Berkeley being so far away. Because Noah, who likes David, said, gee, maybe I'll go to UCLA. I said, you're not going to UCLA. But if you get into Berkeley, you can go there. Which was his suggestion. So thanks a lot for that. I really owe you now. Danny, thanks for reminding me about the gym. And Andy, your place at the Kulwin Seder table is insured for the next 3 decades. And I'd also like to thank, I know Mayor Booker had to leave, but I'm so honored that he was here. I'm the only person I know that has 3 mayors, and in a sense 4 mayors, because a former, and Jerry and I may not agree on this, but I hope a future mayor of Montclair, Robert Jackson, my good friend, is here as well. And then there was that woman who spoke at the end, and she was pretty good, but I don't remember her name. I am humbled, awestruck, overwhelmed, embarrassed, kind of freaked out, but most of all honored. If I've done something of good over these last 13 years, then I'm glad. But at the same time, there is a much stronger feeling I have than being glad. I feel grateful. My father of blessed memory would tell the story, and I recall telling it from this pulpit once, about a medical school professor of his who said that your job is to make sure that every patient feels as if he or she is the only patient you have that entire day. And I try to apply that when I can, and when I do and when it works, it's something I can certainly feel. But it strikes me that you, the members of this congregation, you understand this concept already. Because from the beginning of our courtship, in Sandy Greenberg's living room 13 years ago, through our wedding in this very place about 6 months later, and throughout our 13 years of marriage, during which we have quite literally traveled the world together, you have never failed to make me feel honored, respected, even treasured. And indeed, for our entire family, this is not merely a special place, this is our home. I do what I do because I believe the Jewish people has a special destiny. The precise substance of that destiny is elusive, but my faith convinces me it is of vital importance, not just for ourselves, but for the world. When we embrace our heritage, when we cherish our identities, when we live our values, in other words, when we are whom God wants us to be, the world becomes a better place. As I've discovered over these last 13 years, that lesson can be taught in the classroom and from the pulpit, but even more effectively can it be taught on a tour bus in Israel, volunteering together at our soup kitchen, at the tender moments of peak joys or peak sorrows. Indeed, at any time people talk together and genuinely connect. That moment of connection, a word Edward used earlier, is what each of us seeks. That moment of connection is what Judaism teaches us is the most important thing of all. Several of my teachers this morning have spoken of the portions we are reading at this time of year, and thank goodness nobody made the particular point that I wish to, which is that the word for sacrifice, the words by which we do that which God wants us to do, or our ancestors were commanded to do, is the very same root, comes from the very same root that tells us to be close, to draw close to God by what we do. As was said earlier, if we build it, it is said in the Torah, God will dwell not in that place, but among us. This idea of drawing closer together with ourselves, with our families, with our community, and indeed with the world around us, that is what it's all about. I feel like I'm in the presence of people who understand this idea, to serve on their behalf and to be their rabbi, and more important, to be their friend, is one of the greatest privileges I could wish for. I thank you enormously for the honor of being your rabbi. I am filled with a gratitude that I cannot even express. Thank you. To Hyla and Merle and Linda and all who have worked on this evening, I am so very grateful to you. I don't recall saying you could sit. But you can. Let's make Havdalah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen borei peri hagafen lai lai la 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 lai lai la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim borei minei v'samim lai 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei ha'esh borei meorei ha'esh lai 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 la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh Al-Mavdil ben Kodesh Lechol.
Shavua Tov, please remain in your seats for just a moment so that Rabbi Cohen and his family can make their way to the back of the sanctuary for the motzi. The Cliff Notes journals may be picked up before you leave the event this evening, and following the motzi, you may exit the sanctuary through the doors to my left or through the lobby. Dinner food is in the tent, the conservatory, and the Saul Reinfeld Hall. Will you lead us in motzi, bar mitzvah boy, Rabbi Cohen?